Hi everyone, so as promised I am going to do more watercoloring and illustrating because I took a little break from it and I feel a little bit rusty. You know, it just needs to become more fluid again, if that makes sense. So the best exercise I find to do is one which creates pattern. So just take a piece of paper or any sketchbook you're working in. It could be an insert for one of those traveler's notebooks, it could be different paper, it could be Tomoe River paper for a bit more interest, or it could be watercolor paper. Today I'm using the Khadi Papers, and I will put all the info below. This one has a bit of texture to it, so it's not completely flat, and it's organic paper, so it's pressed. Now I'm going to draw out some leaves, and the idea is that I'm creating patterns. So imagine that this pattern is something that a fabric could be created out of. So for example, you know, a print. So you can think of it as a pattern, but you don't have to. It could be just a basic illustration as well. Just one that has continuous shapes in there. Just continue drawing your leaves, and the best thing is when they overlap a little bit. That way you can create a bit more interest. So I haven't used my fountain pen in a really long time, so it's a little bit scratchy and a little bit dried up, but depending what you use, you could have a more defined line and do it in one line, but I prefer to have a second one. So another thing I'm going to suggest is that you use a waterproof ink for this particular style, because we're going to use watercolor thereafter, which means you might either want or not want to have ink blended into your watercolors. So I'm going to go in and just emphasize some details on these leaves, which again hopefully should give us a bit more interest that way. And let's see. So the ink I'm using is this carbon ink by Platinum. It's my favorite ink when it comes to waterproof inks because it just does what it says. And the other thing you can do is just keep on rotating the paper so it's more natural to draw. Like it will look balanced, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So just think of leaves, think how they grow, think of trees and the wind and how, you know, the leaves have the movement to them, and all that kind of stuff is what I have in mind as I'm drawing. So I don't want the same image repeating. I want it to be quite organic and fluid. That's what I meant by fluid when I said that at the beginning of the video. And it's a very relaxing way of watercolor and ink illustration, because you can take time. So just by adding a little bit of this darkness here, I guess I'm emphasizing which end is what, although it should be clear anyhow. But basically we are constructing a lovely leaf pattern. Okay, so you get the idea. I could continue and fill up the page, or I could actually leave it as it is and use it as a fragment of a illustration. So I'm going to move on to the watercoloring part, and I will use my beloved Quill brush by Jackson's. This is 10-0. All the links are below. Also, if you're interested in this palette, which I put together for myself, you can find all the links to all the colors down below. Okay, so I'm going to probably just mix up a few colors as I go and keep it kind of simple. The other thing is that I don't want to do is I don't want to color in the entire of the leaf. I want to leave some white areas, not only as a highlight but as a place of interest. So here I'm doing a technique called wet and wet, which basically means I'm adding a touch more darker color of the same watercolor into a still wet area. And then I'm going to also introduce a little bit of this sap green. So the one I used before is a Perylene green, so it's a lovely dark color. You can mix them up a little bit together as well, so they're not too dramatic up against one another. That way it kind of works well together, like that. At the minute I'm using my paper as a palette to mix, but you can use the tray rather than doing it on the paper, and that way you could get color mixed in straight away. Sometimes I feel that I want to do it on paper, sometimes I might want to do it on a palette first. It gives you a different kind of look, so you can play around with it. But always try to connect two colors. I wouldn't necessarily want to introduce a third color just because I want it to be kind of within the same family of colors, if that makes sense. So if there's anything too clashing, it just starts to be a little bit more distracting. But if I'm doing something like this, as you can see, that looks quite nice. I might want to work on this one because it just doesn't have enough color there, and it is still wet, so I'm going to go in and give this area a nice punch of color like so. So now it's better. So coming back to that, it's nice to hear the birds sing again. It's like the spring is coming, and I'm excited about the spring, because although I do like winter, but just the days are so short and it gets dark quickly. I love spring because you can walk outside for longer and, you know, all that kind of good stuff, really. So Perylene green is a very dark color, so it will look completely black if you make it quite concentrated. So do use water. So I'm going to want to have the tip quite light here because I want it to be quite contrasting as it's overlaying the other leaf. But the bottom, you can see, is almost completely black, and I would want that color intensity to be repeated elsewhere. So I'll choose this one here, like that, so you can see again very dark. And then I'm washing out my brush and just touching it in some areas just to make the color blend by itself. And then again I want this green starting here and then just blending out quite naturally. And then I might touch this green in this leaf and a couple of areas here. And then I will take my Perylene green, a little bit of it, and then just again add it right into the tip here, so the two colors connect a bit better. And then finally I have this one left at the bottom, so same thing, just mixing the two colors. You can sometimes go back and do a glaze on another leaf if you feel that it's not working in the sense that it might be too pale. If you think that is the case, you can always go back to it. At the moment I'm considering whether I should do something to just the very tip of this leaf right here. I do want to darken it up a little bit while it's still wet, and I quite like that now. So as you can see, the most important thing is there's still a little bit of wetness there, because if it's not, then it will be a dry look. And you can do that, you can do dry, wet on dry, I'm sorry. It will be just a little bit more harsher. So I just added the Perylene green to make it blend a little bit more, and that's our leaves for today. So you can do, like I said, a whole page of it if you have the time. It's really therapeutic, it's really relaxing and super fun to do. So have a go, try these pattern illustrations and let me know what you think and how you get on. So thanks for watching and see you soon.